What is up, fellow nerds, and welcome to Not Your Status Quo. Today, we are having another episode of our award-winning What's Next? This for the Book of Boba Fett and The Mandalorian.
Look at his stupid face. Couldn't actually win one of his own, so he stole someone else's.
And I would be remiss if I did not mention our wonderful sponsor, Sprite. Thanks, Sprite, for being the fresh maker. So after the events of episode 5 of the Book of Boba Fett, or the Mandalorian 2.5 season, whatever we're going to call it, at the end of it, when he said he was going to see his little friend, pay a visit to his little friend, I got two feelings. One, are we going to see that in the Book of Boba Fett? Because I have a feeling when he does go there, I think we're gonna get a scene a lot like the scene in Rebels when Kanan was training Sabine with the Darksaber. I think he is going to get Jedi help wielding the Darksaber. And I think that's going to, I think it's going to be done for two reasons. One, because he needs a Jedi to kind of teach him how to become more in tune with the Kyber crystal. But I also think Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni really want to bring back Luke's legacy. I think a lot of people were really down on The Last Jedi on what he did. And I think this is their way. If he trains Mando, if he trains Din Djarin and Grogu, and they become major players in the galaxy post, all of this, that will establish his legacy as, a character with some worth. So I do believe that's going to happen. I don't know if it's going to happen in the Book of Boba Fett or the Mandalorian season 3.
Yeah, and Mando Light to me is right for this title over the 2.5 that Keith threw in. I think this shows that something happened when after the end of the Mandalorian season 2, after that scene and they left, they obviously did not have a fight or decide what to do with the Darksaber. He just left with it.
It belongs to you.
No, it belongs to her.
She can't take it. It must be won in battle.
I think that's going to be into next season of The Mandalorian, where is he? That answers the question for me. He is going to try and be the ruler of Mandalore. Honestly,
I don't think that Din Djarin wants anything to do with leading the Mandalorians or being the Mandalore or anything like that. He doesn't come off as the type to really want to do that. He seemed disinterested when he was speaking to Bo-Katan. He probably wants to become a better Mandalorian. He seems very invested in making sure that he continues to be known as a Mandalorian, which we'll talk about a little bit later in this episode. But yeah, I don't know. I don't see him actually fighting to become like a leader type unless he's pushed to it for some reason to protect his family.
I agree with Doug. I don't think he wants to rule Mandalore, but I think things are going to start lining up that he eventually will. I think as he is going to go help Boba Fett, probably secure his crime syndicate, and people are going to hear the stories of Din Djarin and what he did. And then he's probably going to help Ahsoka Tano when she's up with Grand Admiral Thrawn, with Sabine, maybe Bo-Katan is back. People are going to start hearing stories about Din Djarin, the Mandalorian who's carrying the Darksaber and doing these things. And he is going to start amassing followers and people wanting to be part of his clan. And we know he's a clan of 2 currently, just him and Grogu. So I got a feeling that he's not going to want it, but greatness is sometimes thrust upon people when they don't want it. So he is just going to keep building up, and stories are going to be told, and legends are going to be told, and that is how he is going to become the Mandalorian. And I think at the end of his series or whatever, we're actually going to see him, be redeemed in the living waters under the Mines of Mandalore. I think that's how the Mandalorian is going to end, with him ruling Mandalore.
Before we get too deep into talking about this episode of The Mandalorian, this episode of the Book of Boba Fett and what's next, I do want to take an opportunity to, before we move on, talk a little bit about Boba Fett, based on what you just said, Keith. And I think this is something that a lot of other people who are talking about the Book of Boba Fett and talking about it kind of negatively, one of the things that I keep reading quite often is that this isn't their Boba Fett. This Boba Fett isn't, the bad guy that they expected.
Back from the dead, assholes!
Here's the thing. He's running a crime syndicate that's kind of evil. That's good. Good for Boba Fett. If you're expecting him to go off and be a bounty hunter, they already have a Mandalorian suit wearing bounty hunter show. They're not stupid enough to make two of them. So that's my 2 cents on that. Now let's talk about the Mandalorian again.
And remember what the armorer said in this episode when she was talking to Din Djarin. She said the mythosaur rising up to herald in a new age of Mandalore. I don't think that means we're going to get these fantastic beasts back on Mandalore. I think she's talking about Boba Fett. I think the legend is about Boba Fett, because what is his sign? It's a mythosaur. So I have a feeling that Boba Fett and Din Djarin's futures are very intertwined, and I think that proclamation by her isn't talking about the actual beast, but actually talking about Boba Fett.
You know, that's really not bad. I hadn't even thought of that, and I forgot that was the insignia on his shoulder armor until you said that. I completely forgot that he had the mythosaur. So yeah, that's kind of cool.
So let's talk about the armorer, and more so the two factions of the Mandalorians. And then we have Bo-Katan and them, who was born to a mighty house that lost their way. They lost their creed, we lost our world. So they are setting up these two factions to kind of be going up against each other. And one of the differences between that set with the armorer and Bo-Katan and what Din Djarin has seen between the two, the armorer, they kind of stay hidden. Even the one Mandalorian in the first season, we hide down here like rats. That's got to look on him, because he sees Bo-Katan, she's stealing ships, taking weapons, and kind of building up to try to retake Mandalore. And I think that's going to sway him a little bit away from the creed and into, with Bo-Katan and that gang, and that's what's going to take back Mandalore. I think they are kind of moving the armorer and her sort of faction to kind of be the villains. And the reason I think that is happening, one, Din Djarin is seeing that removing his helmet is done by other Mandalorians. It doesn't make him a bad Mandalorian. He's probably one of the, he's like the Steve Rogers of the Star Wars universe. He always does what's right, and he does things in his own way. And I think he's figuring out that maybe the Bo-Katan way is correct. You can remove your helmet. You can do these things. You just do what's right. He has the Darksaber. He's going to start, leading people. But I have a feeling, there's theories out there that the armorer was part of Darth Maul's set of Mandalorians. She has the horns on her helmet. She looks like she maybe used those because of Maul. And who do we know who also has ties to Maul? That's right, Kira from Solo: A Star Wars Story. I have a feeling we're going to not only see Kira in this season of the Book of Boba Fett, but I think they're going to reveal that she has ties in her crime syndicate, whether it's Crimson Dawn or something new, to the armorer. And I think that's how they're going to push that faction to kind of be the bad guys in the Mandoverse.
Kira, you and I will be working much more closely from now on.
Still nothing to reel in. I'm still enjoying your theories. They all sound valid. And I don't even, they're so good I can't even add that. Well, I lied. I guess I do have something to add. His theory about the armorer, she's not going to see herself as, being wrong or being evil, or she's just going to think she's a religious zealot. She's going to be up and down about that religion. She's going to be straight up and down. She's going to be straight line. I don't know how to say it any clearer. That's what's going to make her uncompromising and very villainous.
I love that, Dave. Honestly, I think that's what makes the best type of villains are the ones that don't really see themselves as villains. I know that we have talked about this, over and over. I have thoroughly beaten the horse that is long since been dead. But yeah, my favorite thing about the MCU is the fact that they sort of repackaged Thanos as this. He's on his own little holy mission, and he thinks that what he's doing is the best thing for the universe. He thinks that by collecting the Infinity Stones and having all life in the entire universe in order to make sure that everybody is fed, he thinks he's doing the right thing, or according to the new theory that he's potentially saving everybody from the Celestials. So he doesn't see himself as the bad guy. He sees himself as the hero in his version of the story, and I think the armor does as well. I think she sees herself as some sort of holy leader among her religious sect of Mandalorians, and that she's doing the right thing. And hell, maybe she even sees Darth Maul. I love that theory as well, Keith. Maybe she sees Darth Maul as sort of like a savior character, a messiah in their religious sect.
Remember what she feels about Bo-Katan. She said in this episode, born to a mighty house that lost their way, they lost their creed, we lost our world. So she definitely blames anyone outside of her religion that has the creed for losing Mandalore in the first place to the Empire.
Now, we've theorized in past videos that they are descended from Death Watch. And what we recall from Death Watch from the Clone Wars is that they believed in the old way of the Mandalorians, and they were very violence motivated. They were against the peace that had been existing on Mandalore. Now, do you think that this religious sect is also pro-violence and pro-battling and everything like that Death Watch was all about?
The only thing that would make me think that they're not is that the armor said the spear, the Beskar spear, should not be used as a weapon. They want their armor, the Beskar, to be used as a shield. So it seems less aggressive to me.
You bring up a great point, Dave. And I got to say, one of the things that I was wondering when she had made that statement saying that Beskar shouldn't be used as a weapon, Beskar should be used only for armor. Excuse me, did you not make whistling birds out of Beskar?
Since you forego a signet, I shall use the excess to forge whistling birds.
Whistling birds will do well.
Kind of seems like a weapon to me. Is the hilt of the Darksaber not made out of Beskar?
The hilt is of a quality of Beskar I have never seen before.
It was forged over 1,000 years ago by the Mandalore Tar Vizsla. He was both Mandalorian and Jedi.
Seems a little weapony to me. It kind of seems like this religious cult is a little picky choosy with when they want things to be a weapon and when they want things to be an armor. Just saying. I might have to reel that in a little bit, Miss Armorer.
And finally, I want to talk about an offhanded conversation that Din Djarin had with the armorer when he said he wanted to see Grogu again. And she's like, the Jedi way is to avoid attachments. And he's like, that's kind of against our creed. And I think they're going to realize at some point and usher in a new age of Jedi where that is no longer the way. The creed will kind of be more adopted as how Jedis and, Grogu, maybe Rey, and whether it's Luke who figures it out or not, probably not, because we know what happens in The Last Jedi. But I think they're going to realize that attachments aren't all that bad. Look at some of the best Jedis out there. Obi-Wan Kenobi, he had an attachment to, Bo-Katan's sister. Grogu, probably going to be, a Jedi in his own right. He has attachments to Din Djarin. So I think they're going to figure this out, and this is going to usher in the new age of the Jedi following, the Mandalore and all this, and hopefully praying we get a trilogy of movies that focus on Din Djarin ruling Mandalore, Jedis, and all this other stuff. And I'm really hoping it's directed by Bryce Dallas Howard, because so far the 3 episodes that she has done between The Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett have been 3 of the best. And so I'm really hoping she's rewarded for all of her hard work with, something for all of the fans in a trilogy with Din Djarin, Boba Fett, and all of that good stuff.
Keith, I think I remember us talking about this before. I would really like to see them explore that. I would love to see them explore different aspects of the Force in general, but that would be really cool to see.
A gray area, if you will?
A gray area, absolutely.
Well, it doesn't even have to be gray per se, because...
But no, what you're saying, like different factions of the dark side, that'd be really interesting. Like, instead of just pure dark side cheese evil, now we've got different layers of it, basically.
And it would make sense. And since this is a what's next, the Book of Boba Fett and the Mandalorian, and we haven't talked about Boba Fett too much, I do think once his syndicate is secured with the help of Din Djarin, I think when we get to the point later on and Din is ready to take back Mandalore, I think Boba Fett is going to be willing to help him because of all the help that he has gotten from Din Djarin along the way. And I think we're going to see that team up. I think we're going to see a lot of sweet Star Wars stories yet to come in the Mandoverse. That's what we think is next for the Book of Boba Fett and the Mandalorian. Well, what do you all think? Please add us at Twitter, leave a comment down below, and we will see you next time on Not Your Status Quo.